Hello, and welcome to this week's Rise and Thrive with EHE Health, an interactive series where we talk about all things health. My name is Lisa Mindel, and I'm an employee here at EHE Health as a national account manager with some of our clients. With me today, I have professional organizer Rachel Rosenthal.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
I am so thrilled to have you. If you could please give us some background on what you do on a normal basis.
So I'm a professional organizer. I call myself a professional organizer or an organizing expert, and I help people live a more beautifully organized life. So whether that be organizing their kitchen or helping them design closets for more efficiency, I just try to help them become more beautifully organized within their own lives, houses, and routines.
That's amazing. Definitely, particularly during COVID, a lot of us have had issues where our kitchen's becoming our office, or our kids are taking over the living room, it's playroom, it's classroom. People are much more busy. What do you do in the kitchen? How do you get an organized dinner? So right now, a lot of people are really struggling with how do I keep an organized household?
Yes. I think now, especially with COVID, with everyone home, every space in your house is becoming a multi-use space.
Yes.
Like you mentioned, kids working from the kitchen table, working from the family room, their bedrooms, whatever it is. I think now when we're home, it is even more critical that we make sure that our spaces are organized. And that doesn't necessarily mean everything lined up in bins, but making sure when we are working, we're able to be productive if that's what we want to do. Or if it's crafting time, making sure the kids have access to those things. It's really critical to our mental health as well as the physical sense to become more organized right now.
I couldn't agree more. I always get such a relief whenever I do an organization trip.
Yeah, I think people don't necessarily think about the physical connection to the clutter and that mental connection. So I'm a big believer in that physical clutter actually creates mental clutter. And so being able to work on your physical space, I've never once had someone say, oh my gosh, that didn't help me feel, less stressed or more relieved or more at peace with things. And so I really try to implement these systems and help people implement these systems. And hopefully we'll talk about that today in terms of having a clear, kitchen, whatever it is,
Yes.
Because that's going to be able to help you with a better, peace of mind as well.
Yes, and thank you so much. So today I really wanted your help, and thank you so much ahead of time to really help declutter my pantry. So I live in New York City, so my pantry is really a cabinet. So
Yeah.
If you see behind me, what I've done is I've already emptied out everything, because I know we did email beforehand, and so the best practice is to get everything out before you start to organize.
Yes. And so I think that's what scares a lot of people, because you have to take everything out to be able to see what you have. And so I highly recommend setting a time in your calendar, just like you do for any appointment or any meeting that you go to, and actually say that you're going to be organizing your kitchen. And so, I would say it's great that we're just going to be organizing one space in your pantry, but, don't say we're going to organize the whole kitchen and give yourself 30 minutes for it. Remember how long you've been living there. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's not going to take years, to get back to the point of having it organized, but just make sure that you are setting some time aside that seems a bit realistic for the area. So like you picked one space. I think that's a great thing to do. Maybe pick a space, if you can, involve someone else in your home or put them on Zoom, and make sure it's a fun activity. Because I know a lot of people do not find organizing fun, but it should be sort of a way of life. This first time, it might be a little bit harder if you haven't done it before. Put on music, open the windows, do something, give yourself a reward afterwards. But I think it should be fun in the end.
Great. And with me, I have a large pantry bin, a tall, skinny pantry bin, and the Lazy Susan.
That's great. So, you have emptied your pantry. And what I tell people before you even put it back in, just a few steps that I think you should do. One, just clear out, the crumbs or whatever it is, just a quick wipe down with a paper towel, a cloth, or whatever it is, I think would set you on the right path, because if it is a pantry, I'm sure that there are spices that have fallen or food, crumbs, things like that. So just a quick thing. You are showing clear bins. I'm a huge and big believer in clear bins, because a lot of people, if they don't see it, it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. So we want to make sure if we are putting in bins there, we know either it's labeled with what is inside, or like you've done and gotten a clear bin. First, before even going and buying, you want to measure your space, because a lot of the times people just go into the containers or go into Target and they just buy with nothing in mind in terms of what actually fits. And then they get home, they've spent all this money and they're frustrated. So especially during COVID right now, we don't want everyone running out to the store, but making sure that you are measuring so just going across the cabinet, the length of the cabinet, the height of the cabinet, I'm pointing, but if you can't see me, the length and the height and the width, and keeping that in mind in terms of what actually is going in that space.
So I cannot tell you how many times I've returned and exchanged just because I did not do that ahead of time, or I just eyeballed it and could not have been more wrong.
Yeah. And I think putting together a list before you set out, before you order something online is really a good thing. And it's not just because, you don't want to be frustrated in the end, but it's going to save you a lot of time and effort and money, which right now, all those things are critical for most of us because of COVID, right now, and working and doing everything that we need to do personally. So making sure to measure and then thinking about what actually is going to go in the space, I think is going to save you a lot of time and effort.
Great. So with everything out, what I've started to do is really kind of categorize things I would like to have together.
Right.
I do have in one area, these are all my baking goods.
Perfect.
And then I'm personally a big oatmeal fan. So I have all of like my oatmeals and my toppings. And then I have my crackers and then canned food.
That's great.
Really, those are the four main categories. Oh, sorry. And then I have my sauces.
Great. So I think that's a first step for everyone. You've done a great job with categorizing it. And then to sort of build on the categories, I would say to you, where exactly do you want the foods? If you are really into oatmeal and you eat oatmeal every day, I would probably put that on a lower shelf that's accessible for you, not, that high up shelf that like the turkey pan that you use once a year should go, but really think about the placement of the items, because that's going to give you a better sense of how you're going to actually use them. A lot of people, they're not cooks. They don't use spices. I see your spices right there. I probably wouldn't put, spices on that first row for anyone that doesn't cook. I would put them, in areas, maybe not the salt and pepper or whatever you use on an everyday basis, but that's prime real estate right there where your spices are. So I would make sure, and, thinking about the height, like I am not that tall. So I make sure, if I can, I have adjustable shelves. I'm making sure that the height is working for myself. Most of my dishes and things in my pantry are lower down that I'm going to use on a daily basis. So I just want people to keep that in mind when they're actually going to organize and put the items back.
That's such a great point. I don't know if you can tell, but I actually have a step stool that lives in my kitchen because I'm not doing what you're just suggesting about making my prime space my height.
I think step stools are imperative, every kitchen. Most people are not, very tall or their kitchen cabinets, they're using the vertical space, which is great. But having a fold up kitchen, stool would be perfect. It can go behind your doors, they combine or collapse very easily. And there's tons of, things on the market that people can look for, but step stools are crucial.
I'll start to put some things in bins, but in the meantime, we did have one question come in for you.
Great.
With my whole family being home, I find it's hard to keep our own separate workstations organized. How can I create an organized space unique for all of us?
Okay, that's a great question. So if you don't actually have separate workspaces, which most of us do not because, no one predicted this pandemic, what I would say is making sure that your supplies that you need individually or the kids need individually are organized and so that they can be brought to that space. I'm using this as an example and maybe this person can give me a little bit more information, but let's say everybody's working at the kitchen table. If everyone had a bin of their necessities for that day and they were able to bring it to the kitchen table during work time, your headphones, your pencils, your laptop, whatever it is in the bin, making sure you bring it to that kitchen table. Okay, now it's dinner time. It's an easy cleanup. Everyone puts it back in the bin or a rolling cart or wherever it is, and it can be put away for the night. But I'm a big proponent in making sure you have the necessities with you. It can be organized very easily, put in, put out. And then making sure that you are, going through those items from time to time, because a lot of us are obviously home now and we're seeing, we're in our offices. We don't need 75 paper clips, on our actual desk, or my kids actually don't need 75 pencils or markers or whatever it is. So making sure those essentials are organized and accessible for you, I think will be helpful. And carving out that space, I think, the best you can to make a division. I know in our house, we didn't have that. My husband is now working from home, just like many others, and he didn't have an office. So carving out that space and making it feel as personal as you can, because we are here for whoever knows how much longer. And so being able to put, if you need folders, for example, because you have a lot of paper, that you're working with on a daily basis now that you're home, spend the extra money to buy a pink folder if that is what calls to you versus having a manila folder, that you're used to having at work. Put a decorative plant or something to look at actually in your workspace so that you are more inclined to want to sit down and be in your workspace and feel organized and put together rather than, staring at a blank wall.
I love that idea. I should do that myself.
Yes. I mean, I think we are all in a different situation that we didn't predict. And so being as efficient and comfortable in your space, I think you also have to think about what's that space supposed to be? Many people have spaces that are faceted right now. So a kitchen table, you can't paint your kitchen, the color you want because maybe there's 5 people sharing that space now. However, when you go and sit down, even in that, basket that you might have, maybe you're taking out a little something that's on, your table space just for those few hours that you're sitting there. And then it's able to be put back and thinking about what's the intention in that space. For all of us, for working, for our kids, we want it to feel as productive as possible, but also as homey as possible, or, to feel comfortable because you're sitting in that chair. I mean, I think a lot of people forget about the chair, when you're sitting down, it's not maybe as wonderful and easy to get a, rolling chair or something that's great for your back and a kitchen table, but put a pillow, put a blanket with you, do something that's going to make you feel comfortable and, more productive in that space if possible.
I love that. Great. I guess just tagging off of that, because what you said earlier, not everything has to be in a bin. What are maybe some quick organization tips you may have where if you don't have the supplies or the supplies that you want are in back order and just not going to come in, what are just some quick, easy wins to really kind of help organize in any room, really?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people feel like I have to run out to a store, to feel organized, or they get intimidated because they feel like I have to spend a lot of money to be organized, which is the absolute not truth. You might have a lot what you need and you just have it already and you haven't thought of it. So thinking about, a lot of us have those Ziploc containers, for example, that we put our leftovers in. If you take the top off of one of those Ziploc containers, that could be something to hold your desk supplies. People get eggs, right? And so they usually throw away the egg carton, which is a great place to organize earrings, which is a great thing to, put paper clips in or thumbtacks or whatever it is. Thinking about creative ways that you can actually use already things you have. Shoe boxes are wonderful because they're already, you buy the shoes, you get the shoe box, you can put it under your bed, you can put it in the closet, put a label on it so you actually know. The label has to be something, maybe it's on a chalk pen or a Sharpie with, tape. It doesn't have to be fancy. And I think that's what people get stuck on. They get stuck on looking at Pinterest or looking online and saying, oh my gosh, my space has to look like this, and then it's going to be organized. But the reality is, unless you want to spend a lot of time or money for a lot of these pictures that you're seeing, it's just going to be unrealistic in terms of upkeep. We are all so busy right now, and organization to everyone, I think, means a different thing. And so I don't want people to get caught up. I know there's new shows out on Netflix and, books that are out there. I don't want people to get caught up on what they think organizations should be. It's not just rainbows and bins. It is a way of life, especially for me. This is what I tell my clients on a daily basis. But think about how you want your family to be running, how you want to feel when you go and sit down at your desk, on a daily basis.
Great. So I filled up 2 bins. So I'll quickly put them in. You can tell me how I did.
Okay, great. So
here I have all my baking goods. I used to bake a ton, but I don't bake a lot anymore. So I'm gonna put this at the top shelf.
That's great. And you're using your step stool.
Yes, I can see everything.
Yep.
And then my oatmeal and all those toppings I told you about that I do reach for often, I'll put right here on the second shelf. So it's really easy to grab.
Perfect. And I think
I have some additional things, but I only have 2 bins so far. So everything else will be outside. But I do have this very sexy turntable.
I love turntables. I think they really can maximize the space, and I use them a lot for oils that stand up and things like that. You have them.
Let me do that now.
Great.
Just so easy.
Yeah, turntables are great. They really maximize the space, and especially for things that you're using on a daily basis, you're not going to have to reach back in that cabinet. All you have to do is push that turntable, spin it around, and you have access to those things. So it's just so simple, and you're able to maximize that space and really get into the things. And I like how you actually showed that. I wish we had it before of what your space looked like, but yes. I'm assuming it looked things like shoved in, right?
Everything was shoved in.
Okay.
There was not 1 inch that was not used.
Right.
And now I feel confident that I have the space now for the few things that I have left over. There's enough blank space to fill that in, and everything else is so much more accessible.
Yes. And then your things are categorized first and foremost. Yes. So when you want to have oatmeal and or the toppings, they're in that bin. And what's great is that bin is accessible. So you can pull it in and pull it out versus having to, reach around and try to find something and the other things fall out. And I think that's what the key is for people. You can see what you have. So now easy access to when you want to cook oatmeal. I'm going to use your oatmeal as an example. It is great and easy for you now once you know something is out because you can see it. So then you can add to your grocery list and say, okay, we need more oatmeal. And then, so you're saving money that way, you're saving time, which really helps. I know, especially with us doing everything at home right now, we don't want to have to be thinking about an extra step somewhere. So you want quick access to your food. We're in the kitchen so much more. I really do believe that the kitchen is the #1 space that people should have, organized if they can, if they're going to start somewhere. So I'm glad we're talking about it, but it just has so many benefits now. And now as a result, I think the final thing is that it visually looks very pleasing. So for going in and seeing it on top of all the other benefits, it is now visually beautiful and organized.
Which I'm a sucker for aesthetics.
Well, I think it's an add-on, and I think that really helps, and I think when you go and look at that now, you're going to feel very positive. And so that is having that physical space impact your mental space, right? And so along with the other benefits of the physical stuff, you're getting that positive boost for your health, your mental health that way.
Yes, we got another question that came in. It says, I'd love to be more organized, but I get overwhelmed trying to think of each room I have to do it. I just shut down. Is there any room of the house you'd recommend starting with?
Okay, so I'll take that sort of in a 2-point thing. I recommend starting where you feel the most intimidated with, if you can, or start with that one room that you think is going to be the easiest. So I just mentioned, I think the kitchen is a great place to start. However, because we're in it all the time. So I think you'll get the most bang for your buck, if that makes sense. And you'll see the results quicker because you're in that space most often. However, if it is extremely intimidating to start in the kitchen because you just don't know where to start, I would start with something that might be easiest for you. And that might not be a room, for example. Let's say it's your closet, okay? Yeah. I would start with this section of clothing or a corner of your closet or a corner of your bedroom. It does not have to be the whole room. And I really, really want to stress that, again, Rome wasn't built in a day, and this might be your first time doing it. So to get less overwhelmed with it, I would write it out, or however you put your projects, whether it be electronic or on a, I'm a visual person. I use both, but I would write it out and I would list, the areas that I want to get to. Let's say it's the kitchen and the family room and the basement or whatever it is, and then try to prioritize. And then even within that, make little points that you're going to do. There's going to be a lot of steps to get to organized at the end. You might have donations that come out of, let's say we did the kitchen and there were a lot of utensils that we use that we no longer, or went through that we no longer use. There's a donation pickup that might need to be scheduled, or you might want to give, your extra spatulas that you no longer use over to your friend. Or, there might be items that you no longer use that are expired. So you're going to have to throw those things out. Or there might be things you no longer use that you want to donate, to a food pantry because it's not open. Whatever it is, there are so many extra steps within organization, breaking it into chunks, setting a timer, as I mentioned at the beginning, having a reward afterwards, putting on music, and looking at it not just as a task, even though it might feel like that first time, but realizing it can be a way of life after you continue and do it. And you won't have to do that big purge once you've done it for the first time.
So true. So about a year ago, personal story, I was notorious for keeping things past their expiration date, whether it be food or medication. And I did a gigantic purge where I literally probably kept only 5% of what was actually in my home because everything else had expired. And ever since, because I did organize and just what you were saying, it's been so much easier just to making sure that I truly am only getting the items that I need, and the items that I have, I could have clear sight into. I know I'm not duplicating a purchase. I had, I think, 5 Tylenol extra strengths. There was no need for it. I just didn't know I had it.
Right. And I think, you know, one of the other things we didn't talk about with the kitchen, I think that's a great, it just refreshed my memory. One of the other steps I would highly recommend in a kitchen, if you can, is decanting. So that's taking things out of packaging if you have room. I think actually having, you know, let's talk about cereal, because a lot of people have cereal. Those big boxes, once you've eaten a fourth of it, you know, the bag inside of it is actually, you know, less than the actual huge, you know, cardboard box takes up. So if it was decanted into another product that you could use over and over, it would take up a lot less space. You would also be able to see what you have. Same thing, you know, my kids go through granola bars like crazy. And if I don't know, if I had a box in there, I wouldn't know if there's 2 or 4. And by the time that they're ending, you know, my kids want more. But if once I decant it, I can actually see, oh, we only have 4 left. I'm going to put it onto the, you know, grocery list for the next week. So I think decanting really can save you a lot of time and effort, and especially with expiration. You don't know how long that, you know, flour is going to last. And people always say, well, how do you know? I would tape it to the bottom. I would write it on it in chalk marker that comes off. You can always put the expiration date, but that will allow you to use your food quicker and see it, and hopefully not have any sort of things that are going to be expired because you've been able to see it.
Yeah, those are some great tips. It's so true.
Yeah.
I did notice when I was emptying out my pantry, there's some things that it's not expired, but it's about to be expired. So it's like, okay, what can I do with this? What can I do with that? And those are the recipes I'm going to go after so I don't waste food.
Yeah, and you could put those in the front, for example, now, so that you can see them, and as a reminder, a visual reminder, oh my gosh, I have to use, I mean, I just did that with our pantry, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've had pumpkin now, and now we're in pumpkin season again, but I haven't used it since last season. So I'm like, I have to use it up. It's going to expire. So I'm like, what can I make with pumpkin?
That's the exact item that I had in my mind that I...
Funny. Yeah. Yeah.
That and 1 can of black beans.
Yeah. You could do it. You can do it. Make something with that.
Yes. Well, as we start to wrap up here, I don't see any more questions coming in, but just before we close out, I want to give you the opportunity to your website, tell us about it, how to get more helpful hints, all of that.
Great. So if people are on Instagram, I do a lot over there. So it's at Rachel Organizes, RACHEL Organizes. So you can see some behind the scenes. I give tips over there, as well as I have a newsletter that goes out every month on my site. So if you want to head over to my website, which is Rachel, RACHEL, Rosenthal.co, CO. And I have a website over there that you can check out, and get some tips. But the newsletter is chock full of tips and product discounts and all of that. So I think Instagram or my website to get my newsletter would be the best places to find me if you want more information and tips like that.
Yes, and who doesn't love a product discount? While we still have a couple moments, what are your favorite products?
Oh, that's a good question. So I will tell you, I am a brand ambassador for the Container Store. There's 20 of us in the country. And so I am partial. That doesn't mean I don't only use, Container Store products, but I really do like the quality of their products. And I think I look for products that are versatile, because whatever store you're shopping at, I think you need to look for products that aren't just a one fit and I can only use them in one space. Again, more bang for your buck. So things like, the bin, I'll just use, for example, the bin, bigger bin that you used in your pantry, that can be used anywhere. That can be used under a bedroom sink. It can be used in a closet, for hats and mittens. It can be literally used for toys, anything you want. I think those are great for people in smaller spaces, New York City apartments, whatever it is. I like using the back of the door. So anything that can go on the back of the door, it might say that it's a shoe organizer. However, I use them in bathrooms, to contain hair things and toothpaste and toothbrushes, bath toys, that kind of thing. Also, in a front hall closet for sweaters, in a regular closet for purses and scarves. So I think looking for things that are going to maximize your space and it can be used in more than one space are really products that I highly recommend.
Yes, I love looking at Instagram for that. So like looking at your account, other similar accounts. In my own personal bedroom, I want to say it was a shoe drawer, but I have all my pocketbooks in it and it's great. It's the perfect size for my apartment because I have a small space. Yep. It's clear, so it does the functionality that I need.
Yeah, and I think people, just in terms of products, again, think about what you want to store in it, measure before you go. I tell people organizing is not about products. I truly believe organizing is creating that system, once you've decluttered, creating that system that you can live with. It might have to be tweaked, but the products are going to aid in the organization of that system. So I know there's shows out there, we see products, flying off the shelves, all that kind of stuff, but I really believe that organization is a way of life. And then those products are there just to aid in that organization. So again, you don't have to spend a lot. You don't have to run out to the Container Store or Target, but thinking about systems that would help you, benefit both physically and mentally, I think are the reasons we organize and get organized, which I say is not a one-time event, but more of a way of life.
I couldn't agree more. It has been such a stress relief and also just something that I enjoy the aftermath of.
Yeah.
To what we were talking about before, just the aesthetics. It feels great to know that everything's organized. It feels great to know that I have easy access to everything. And I'm no longer stressing about, oh my God, I could barely close my cabinet.
Right.
What if I can't, when I go to the grocery store, I'm like, I can't buy anymore until I actually really need to use it. I can't store it. There's no room. But now, because of this, I have the room that I need.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I haven't had one person in 13 years literally say to me, oh my gosh, that was horrible. I don't want to organize something else, or I don't feel good, or I don't feel less stressed. And I really do believe it builds on it. So starting small is a huge thing. But I really hope that everyone can feel that and declutter something, a junk drawer, whatever it is, to feel better, because I really do believe it will happen.
It's so much what they say about exercise. No one ever has done an exercise and regretted it. No one will ever organize and regret it.
Right, exactly.
Great. Well, if there anything else before we close out?
I don't think so. I just hope that people, look at it as something that can be fun. I hope they put it into small steps, bring a friend, I know during COVID, but put someone on Zoom, put some music on, give yourself a reward for it. Those things that you declutter, get some money from consignment, buy something you're actually going to use. Now, especially that we are in our homes, we are seeing all the stuff that we have. Do we actually need it? I think now is a perfect time to be organizing for most people.
Couldn't agree more. And everyone, I do encourage you, please check out Rachel's website, her Instagram. It truly is inspirational. It's that spark that you need if you've been holding back organization habits. And please do join us again at Rise and Thrive with EHE next Thursday.
Thank you so much.
Oh my God, thank you so much for coming to my kitchen.
Thank you.
Thank you.